Welcome to Fun to Be Fit Over 50, real health and wellness that fits your real life. My name is Carol Denman, and this is where knowledge meets action. You already know what to do. Now let's talk about actually doing it.
If I asked you to describe the strongest woman you know, you might picture someone with muscles, someone who can lift heavy things. And my guest today can absolutely do that. She turns 60 next month and just crushed not one, but two strongman competitions. She picks up logs, she carries yokes, she competes against women half her age and wins. But here's what you need to know. A year ago, Mary Black was what she calls a total metabolic mess. Type 2 diabetes, every single marker for metabolic syndrome. Tired, frustrated, stuck. She didn't have some magic pill that fixed everything overnight. What she had was a husband who missed his workout partner, a doctor who finally listened, and a spirit that simply refused to stay on the couch. Oh, and she did all this while working 12-hour shifts in a gold mine in Fairbanks, Alaska, driving a truck the size of an apartment building in the dark, in the cold. But here's what you really need to know about Mary. She's fun. Like, genuinely laugh out loud. Take no guff. Life is meant to be lived fun. You'll hear it in her voice. You'll feel it in her stories. She's been with her husband, Mark, for 40 years. Their first date? The gym. She quit smoking in 2009. She fired a doctor who told her calories are calories, even if those calories are cheesecake. She lost 50 pounds in the last year, but most importantly, she kept her muscle. She prioritized protein. She showed up 3 to 4 times a week, even when she didn't feel like it. Her website is called She's Totally Awesome. And after this conversation, I think you'll agree. She absolutely is. This is a woman who grew up drinking from a garden hose and breathing Aquanet. A Gen Xer who believes you don't get a trophy for just showing up, you earn it. Today, Mary shares her whole story. The turning point, the medication that became a tool, not a crutch, the fear of losing muscle, and how she fought back. And the one piece of advice she'd give to the woman who's 55, scared, and hasn't moved in years. She's strong, she's resilient, she's a little salty in the best possible way, and she's proof that it's never too late to turn it all around. I'm Carol Denman, and this is Mary Black. Let's get into it.
Mary, you turn 60 next month and just crushed two strongman competitions. But a year ago, you said you were a total metabolic mess with type 2 diabetes. What was the turning point that made you go from the couch to picking up a log?
Well, I had actually have been very active my whole life. My husband and I, we used to have sled dogs. We've worked out since, I met him when I was just about 20 and, worked out, but hadn't done anything consistently for quite some time. When we retired from sled dogs in 2011, we bought a gym and we had been working out, but then I became a personal trainer and kind of like the cobbler's kids has no shoes. I didn't have time to work out because I was training clients in the times I had to work out. Because I started out part-time, and so I was training clients from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., going to work, and then training again from 6 to 8 p.m., so I didn't have any time. I got into some strongman stuff a little bit in, actually, that was 2018, did a couple shows, and then 2019 became a personal trainer, and by 2020, I was full-time. And that's when I just wasn't training myself much anymore. And when we moved back to Alaska, I decided, it's time for me to start taking care of myself again. I'm not training people anymore. I'm not working in a gym. So I actually started working out in January of 2024. With that, at that time, I was a metabolic mess too, and nothing was moving the needle. And my doctor, when I had reestablished with her when we moved back up here, all my numbers kept going in the wrong direction. And she was like, Mary, we've got to do something. And so we tried a couple of things. And then in, I think it was January, February of last year, I did go right. I've been pre-diabetic for years and actually hit the type 2 markers. And she said, all right, this is when we have to get serious. So we started with doing different things. It was like we had to try a couple different medications, and metformin was the second one, and it just made me sick. And she's like, "All right, now the insurance company will cover the a GLP-1," and we ended up going with Manjaro, which is, I guess, a GLP-2. It's tirzepatide, but we went into it very cautiously. I mean, I would prefer to not be on medication if I could help it, but I couldn't keep going where I was because I had every metabolic marker for metabolic syndrome, every single one of them. Um, so we started out on a low dose, the lowest dose you can start out with. And it started to just move the needle in the right direction. And I've stayed on a lower dose. I increased it once, and I stayed there for the entire almost last year. So I started in May of last year, and in June we moved up, and I've been at that ever since. And it made me feel better. I could work out more. I mean, losing the weight was, I mean, I lost about 50 pounds in the last year, which is a side benefit because every single one of my markers, except one, has gone now. I mean, I went pre-diabetic in my early 40s, and now I'm almost 60, and I'm not even pre-diabetic anymore. My numbers
Mhm.
are in the range. I'm at the high end, um, of being just kind of on right, being on the cusp of it, but still my numbers haven't been that good for almost 20 years.
That's awesome. That's really great. So you've been open about using tirzepatide, but you also emphasize keeping all your muscle. What
Yes.
did your training and protein look like so you didn't end up frail like many people fear on these medications?
Yeah, and I was worried about that myself too. And my doctor and I had talked about that, and fortunately, I'd already started working out again and being consistent. So I've been really consistent 3 to 4 times a week since last January. There's been 1 2 week stretch where with my work schedule, the days I work, I can't work out. There's just no time. And I had days on in between a vacation. So there was 2 weeks where I didn't work out, and that was the longest I had gone since last January. So um, I have been very, very intentional about it. I'm getting bi-monthly in-body scans at the gym and to measure that, and it was making sure I'm lifting heavy, and now I lift heavier than the average person needs to.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
stuff that I do, that strongman stuff, you don't have to do that, but picking up the weights, doing strength training, being consistent, having a progressive overload, meaning you're always going up in weights, you're lifting heavy enough where your like your last 2 reps are difficult, not just grabbing a 2-pound weights and doing bicep curls for a year. I mean, that's not gonna get you very far. So making sure I'm doing all of that and really concentrating on getting and prioritizing protein. Where they say you need to do that when you hit menopause and, gosh, if I'd have learned this stuff 15 years ago when I hit perimenopause, man, I probably would have had a lot less issues going through menopause, but it's that 100 grams of protein marker, and I've even tried to increase that a little bit because I was concerned in the first, I think it was about 6 weeks, I lost 18 pounds, but I had a ton of inflammation, and I know, not all of that was fat. It was a lot of inflammation because the puffiness started to go away almost immediately, um, and I did my first scan after that. And I was like, man, out of the 18 pounds, I had lost like 2.5 or 3 pounds of muscle. And my coach was just like, hey, that's actually not bad for the amount of time. And I mean, that was very quick. That's weight loss, Mary. You know, that's probably a lot of inflammation. But he said that muscle, he said that's kind of normal in the beginning. But he said, I've had a lot of clients that have done this, that half or more is actually muscle. And because it's hard when you don't wanna eat, that was
Yeah.
weird, that food noise they talk about, I was like, "Wow, this is so true, now I understand what it is."
Yeah.
Um, and I've always had a sweet tooth my entire life, I blamed it on my dad and on my grandma, um, but that has, been mellowed out for sure, and it really, really, really helped with that, and so like, that protein is just super important, so I get it any way I can instead of being I was always like, "You need to eat your protein, you need to eat your chicken, you need to eat eggs, you need to eat," all this kinda stuff. "You need to chew it," and it was like, I just have to get it in. So I've
Mhm.
been utilizing I take 3 different types of collagen, and one of them now that I've just recently added into it to get more protein is just a powdered unflavored collagen that I can throw in my coffee first thing in the morning, so I get 20 grams of protein with my coffee. I make a big protein coffee for my husband because he likes a little bit of coffee with his chocolate. Me, I just like coffee. And I was like, "Gosh, if I can get that extra just those extra grams of protein, if that's how I have to get it, I get it." I utilize a clear protein. Thank goodness they've come out with, like, clear proteins now, clear and it's as clean as possible, and I utilize that not only for my protein, another way I get 20 grams of protein is I'm also putting that in a big water bottle, so I'm also staying hydrated, which is super important too when you're on those medications, and then I make sure that I have, like, 2 meals, like, a lot of times, like, a breakfast can be, like, eggs or Greek yogurt, a high quality Greek yogurt with a lot of protein, and I add chia seeds, and I get it plain, and I sweeten it myself with monk fruit, and some berries, and then try to have 2 meals I chew or eat, and then the rest can be utilized with drinkable proteins if I just don't feel like eating, but I know I have to
Yeah.
get.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad you found a way to get your protein in. That's so fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna help a lot of people too, to
Yeah.
hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've joined a bunch of, like, the groups on Facebook and stuff, and that is the question, "How do you eat, and how can you get," and, like, I tell people, like, they're like, "Oh gosh, I have to worry about this." Just worry about getting it any way you can, and especially in the beginning for, like, me, like I said, that you don't wanna eat eat because what a GLP-1 does is it slows gastric emptying, so meaning you stay full longer and you feel full longer, so you don't wanna eat, and you can't eat as much because it stays in your stomach as long, and it's like, just get your protein, and over the year, things have kind of mellowed out a little bit. I do wanna eat now, or I do get hungry, um, but my routine at this point, hopefully, is fairly structured and that I don't overdo it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Walk us through your first strongman competition. Were you terrified, and what did the younger competitors think of a 59-year-old woman showed up flipping tires and carrying yokes?
Well, it's funny because I actually did, like I mentioned, I did a couple of shows back in, I think it was 2018. I did a winter show and a summer show, and then I said, "Nah, I'm not gonna do that." I focused on something else for a while, and I came back into it because my husband does it, and it's his love language is spending quality time together. So when I was getting back in the gym, and I said, "All right, I might want to do a show again," and but I knew I needed to get a good foundation underneath me. So there was a novice show, and my coach said, "Hey, you're considered a novice. You haven't competed in 8 years." Or at that time 7 because it was last year, and so you could start out as a beginner again, and he said it would be a great show for you to get started with, so I started working with him, I think in May, and I had him do my programming, because that's very specific and, that could based on
I
what
can
you're going
only
to be doing,
imagine. Yeah.
um, and it's and I got involved in it because it was just spending time with my husband and doing something together. And it's kind of fun to compete together and also to kind of try to inspire women, like of our age and even younger. It's like, hey, you can do this stuff. I mean, I just see people sometimes it's like, oh gosh, I'm slowing down or I'm not, I can take it. No, this is the time when we should really be enjoying life.
Mhm.
And so I'm, kind of doing it in that way of trying to inspire people. Hey, just get off the couch.
Mhm.
Um, there was a gal in the show that I competed against because it just was one class. You had men and women, and you competed against each other. And I was competing against a gal who was in her 20s,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
she's um, I don't know if she does like Olympic lifting or powerlifting, one of the two. And so I'm like, God, how am I going to compete against this 20-year-old? But she hadn't done a lot of the strongman stuff. So she won 2 events. I won 2 events. There's 5 events that we did, and we tied in the other.
Wow.
So I ended up winning because I'm like, well, how do they gosh, are we gonna have to do like some sort of, like standoff or, what are we gonna have to do? Well, it's based on your weight, whoever weighs in the least. 'Cause actually there was a lightweight women and a heavyweight women, and we were both lightweights. And because you weigh in, whoever weighs in the least actually gets the win in some competitions. And that's how ours was. But, it's like, man, I actually beat her in 2 events and she's almost 40 years younger than me, or 35 years younger than me. So, there was a gal there who goes to our gym. She's done CrossFit in the past and she's, just lifts weights and heavy. So for the summer show, she had entered. And when we were at the show or at the winter show, because there was another show I did. So that was in November, and then there was a competition in January. And at the show, she came up to me and she said, I entered this because I saw you doing that show in November. I figured,
Oh,
if she can do that at 59, I can do this at 30. So that was pretty cool.
incredible. That's incredible. I love that so much. I
A
love
lot of
that
people
so
think
much.
I'm crazy, but
Yeah.
but I don't care. I've never cared what anybody thinks, and you just gotta, go your own way, do your own path. Everybody's
Yeah.
different, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it as long as I can because tomorrow, who knows? I had 2 back surgeries in my 30s, and so doing this too is kind of for some people it'd be like, "What the hell are you thinking?" You know? Um, but I try to be very cautious, and I mean, I do have, injuries, and I'm not 20 anymore, and hell, I was getting injured in my 30s, so what the heck?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's so great. I love that you inspired somebody to actually do it because they saw you do it. I think that is the benefit of social media nowadays.
Yeah.
It is one of those like you go down rabbit holes and you can get too into, all the things. But you also get to see the opportunities and the possibilities. So you work at a gold mine in Alaska. How does that environment, cold, remote, physical, actually help your fitness versus a normal gym? Do you train differently because of it?
Well, my schedule has actually recently changed, or my job has recently changed. When I started at the gold mine last year, my husband's worked up there for 10 years, since 2015, and I took a job there. I was actually a haul truck driver when I got started last year. And a haul truck driver is you drive the trucks that are as big as a house or, like a 2-story apartment building because they're 20 feet tall. And you sit for 12 hours. We have 12-hour shifts up there. So you sit and you are just sitting and sitting and sitting for 12 hours. And our location, we are a one that you can drive through where some of these gold mines and different mines that are throughout the world are, they call them man camps, where you actually physically go to them, stay there, that have like apartments or trailers or beds or whatever. We can come home every day, but we also take a shuttle
Ah,
bus up. So we leave our house like when I was working or driving, we would leave our house at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. because you shift back and forth between days and nights. You do a month of days, a month of nights. We leave at 5 and we wouldn't get back home until 8:30, 15 and a half hours later. So, um,
Wow.
and you sit. So sitting, I mean, it doesn't really help your fitness at all. And because the only times you really get out of the truck is if you have to change truck, your truck breaks down, you have to go to the bathroom. Otherwise you are literally in your truck all day long. Um, so that's a little bit of a disadvantage for someone who is training because we work 5 days or 4 day stints and we get 4 and 5 days off. So our 4 and 5 days off are great because we get all that time to be off. But those days that we work, that leaves no time whatsoever for training. I mean, I literally come home, empty my backpack out, wash my dishes, and I would wash up and go to bed. Get up in the morning, shower. I'd make our lunches while my husband was getting ready and out the door we'd go. Well, now it's been my second rotation that I just got off of. I have actually been switched to working in the warehouse. And so, which is good in the respect that I'm not sitting for 12 hours. I am now on the run for 12 hours. I am on my feet
Okay.
almost the whole time. So I went from getting about the days that I worked about 2,500 to 3,000 steps a day. I mean, and that part of that I think is just bouncing around in the truck if my watch was on and, thinking of as I
Yeah.
walk to a legitimate 15 to 17,000 or more steps in those 12 hours.
Wow.
It's hustle. It's busy. So in that respect, it's going to be better, but it's still I'm leaving at 4 a.m. and I don't get home until 7:30. So I'm working an hour earlier than my husband. But what's nice about this when I got shifted is it's the same days off and on that he has. So we still have our days off together, which is super cool. Um,
Mhm.
but again, I don't get a lot, but I get those 4 days, and in those 4 or 5 days, we work out 4 or 5 of those days. Um, Sometimes taking one of the days off but so it's kind of a disadvantage that way, but it really makes us focus on those days off.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine. That's a long day.
They are.
Yeah, Lee leaves. He's gone for 12 hours a day, and I thought that was a long day. So
Yeah.
15, forget about it.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So you mentioned driving a truck the size of an apartment. What has a job like that taught you about patience, self-resilience, and even body mechanics that applies to fitness over 50?
Well, resilience for sure in that one. It was very frustrating for me because you're driving. The and they're actually those trucks are very, very easy to drive. They're
Hmm.
have power steering. And they actually like, you can turn those things on a dime. Well, a dime
Really?
size of a house. Um, but, I mean, it seems like it has a tighter turning radius relative to than even my husband's truck. I mean, it's crazy. Um, but you're big. You have to realize how big you are, and the technique is being able to back into your loading unit, whatever it is, we have shovels and big front end loaders that you back into. So there's technique there. So as much as you are driving forward is easy. It's the backing into the things you need to back into and doing it correctly is the challenge. And I was having a hell of a time. I was with a trainer for I felt like longer than anyone else, but I've talked to a few other people, or a few other people had seen my post I had a couple weeks ago, and they're like, "Oh, girl, I had a trainer for 2, 3 months too," and I'm like, "Okay, so I don't feel quite so bad." These people had to send them back in with a trainer, so that's good. So that was definitely a challenge, and I was telling the I guess bosses or supervisors said, that's been the hardest thing for me is I've always been somebody who usually catches on to something fairly quick. Show me, don't tell me what to do. Don't have me read a book. But if you show me how to do something, I usually can figure it out pretty quick. And it was very, very frustrating to be like, God, am I ever going to get signed off on this thing? Or are they going to let me go because I'm taking so long? Um, so that really was something I had to just kind of like, put the ego aside and then of course now I get switched out of that position. I know like I was telling one of my trainers, she was actually my very first trainer, ran into her the other day and I told her, I said, so because as you back into stuff, you have to, of course, you're by mirrors. There's no rear view mirror other than your two side mirrors, and you're
Okay.
back in on like the passenger side, which we call the blind side. That mirror is 20 feet away from you, and it's not a lot bigger than like a semi mirror, like they're pretty decent. I mean, some of them, are maybe, two 2 feet high, but 2 feet high, 20 feet away isn't very big. And
Yeah.
a lot of times it's dark, when all winter it's dark for, we only get about 3.5 hours of daylight. So you're doing this in the dark. Granted, there's all kinds of lights on all the machinery and stuff, but you're backing in to a counterweight of a shovel and you're looking at these flags that are, about this big and you have to back around it. So and you don't want to hit, I mean, you can't hit something, it happens and it does happen, but you don't want to be the one that does it. So, that was really, really a big challenge for me. But toward the end, I was like, man, just give me the blind side, give me the counterweight, give me the flags. I'd rather do that than you back into like the shovel that has a bucket on it. You back in, you line up on the shovel bucket. I'm like, just give me the counterweight. And then they switched me inside. Um, so that was definitely something that I had to be very, very resilient and learn how to do it. And it was frustrating for sure for a while.
Yeah. But you did it. That's so
I
great. I
did.
love that. Yeah, you did it. Your goal is to retire your husband in the next 18 months. How does that mission fuel your daily choices, especially on the days when you'd rather stay in bed than train?
Well, for me, it is getting up because I've got my job, and then I've got another side hustle too. So what's fueling me is, to get up because that is something I have to be focused on also. And again, on the days that I work, especially now in the warehouse, like in the truck, sometimes we get parked up for whatever reason, the truck would break down. You have to sit there for, excuse me, half an hour to an hour waiting for a mechanic to come fix it or different things. I don't have that luxury. I mean, that's a luxury not to me now, since starting in the warehouse where it is if I get 20 minutes to sit down and eat my lunch, because now I got a microwave, I can actually heat up warm food. So I tell them, I would just give me my 10 minutes to eat my warm lunch, you know? But otherwise it's you're eating at your desk, it's run, run, run. So it is, I have to focus in doing that while I'm at home and I have pockets of time to do it in and I gotta get it done. So, especially now and my schedule too, I don't have to switch back and forth between days and nights. My job in the warehouse now is strictly days. So, I'm having to like get used to getting up early again. So like this morning I got myself up at 5 even though it's my day off, but I'm up at 3:15 on the days that I work. 5 o'clock is almost sleeping in for 2 hours. So, with that, I also go to
Wow.
bed I need to go to bed really early. Getting back on that routine and staying on it, um, is helpful because my husband likes to sleep and he needs more sleep than I do. So, I'll get up and I have 4 hours to get stuff done. So, that's what I do. That's what I spend my time do my stuff. And sometimes we'll just be sitting here, watching something on TV, but I might be sending messages. And, his love language is quality time together. So that's where I'm here, with him. And maybe he's watching something on TV or doing something else, but at least we're here together. So,
Yeah.
so I can do things like that. So I am uber focused in that time. And then also when we take our time to go to the gym, I'm focused on just working out and spending time with him too. So, I mean, occasionally I take my phone out, check a message here and there. But otherwise that's not time to work. That's time to hang out, work out, get in a good workout, and do something together. So I feel blessed in that way. So doing that, so it's just focused time and, having that type of like, second job, if you will. I mean, I wasn't gonna take another job where I have to be away from the house. I'm gonna be doing something here and, where I can be at home and do it wherever I want. If I do get a break, like when I was driving, if we got our 20-minute breaks or I was sending messages and, doing things like that. So, you could do that when you're stopped and parked. So you got to take advantage of those little pockets of time here and there to grow
Yeah.
your your dream, I guess, in a way.
Love that. Okay. So your website says that you grew up drinking from a garden hose and breathing Aquanet. How does that gritty Gen X attitude serve you better than the all positive thinking only fluff that we see online today?
Well, life is not always a bed of roses. So, and life isn't easy. So, I mean, as a Gen X kid, I mean, we're kind of like that middle child generation. And I'm kind of a middle child too, even though I'm the fourth out of five in my family. I have a brother, and then I have a brother and sister twins that were born 14 months apart. Then there came me 5 years later, and then my little sister 5 years after that, so I'm kind of all by myself, so I was kind of more of a middle child, and just having that independence, being very independent, being very, um, just kinda, like, doing whatever I wanted to do. Like, when I was little, my best friend was my oldest brother, and I was like his little buddy. My sister had my little sister. They were best buddies. And both my sisters, we all hated or I hated them and they hated me kind of thing. Or we not hated, but we didn't get along very well till we became
Yeah.
adults. Um, so I was my oldest brother's little buddy. I went everywhere with him. He was coaching little league, so I went with him. He taught me how to keep books. Well, then they were short a player because kids were sick, and he's like, "All right, go in the outfield." And I was like, I remember telling him, "But I'm a girl." He goes, "You play better than most of these boys. Get your ass out there." So then I ended up playing little league with the boys because there wasn't a girl softball league back then. And, we just did, and especially since we did without the electronics. We had to be I remember, I mean, just the things that you think of, that, your parents would tell you, like, "I'm bored." "Well, if you're bored, I'm gonna give you something to do." It's like, "All right, I'm out. I'm gone."
Yeah. Yeah.
You had to. You entertained yourself, we didn't call ourselves I'm an early Gen Xer, born in '66. So he became a thing really, I think, until, like, the later '80s, early '90s, for that part of the Gen X generation. But we were. I mean, I came home from school, my mom wasn't home, she was working. My older brothers and sisters, they might have been off in sports, or somebody might have been home, somebody might not have been. My dad was a truck driver, he'd leave at 3 in the morning and wouldn't get home till 10 at night, during the week. So, uh, we just were, very independent. So being that and having that, I don't know, thank God we weren't the generation of the everybody gets a trophy type thing. Because there's winners and losers. And I think in our generation, what we learned from that is, well, if you want to win, you just got to work harder, or find something different because maybe that's just not your thing. Like my husband, he's 6'6", 315 to 320 pounds on any given day. And he's like,
Wow.
well, I can't be a jockey, so I'm gonna be a strongman,
No.
you know? Um, so, I mean, some of the things, I mean, granted, yeah, I mean, it's great to have like that positive, try to think of, how do you talk to people and the bullying, and you don't have to be a jerk and, and things like that. You can still be kind, but you can still be like, yo, you got to have some work ethic here. You don't deserve anything. You got to work for it because there's no, to me at least, there's no satisfaction if you don't have to work for it and like have that accomplishment. Just like me, even like driving that truck, it was when I finally got signed off, it was like, yes, and
Mm.
when you learn how to do it and get better at it and, always be improving where's the desire to even want to get better at something when you just get a trophy for just showing up.
So true. So true. Lee and I were just talking about literally last night about us being like a middle child. We didn't say the middle child part, but that's a really good description of it because we are in the middle of the boomers and the millennials. And yes, we raised the millennials. I just look like it's like almost like extremes to both sides of us. And we're like,
Right.
what the heck? You know?
Right. Well, and it's funny because,
Yeah.
my husband's 5 years older than me, so he is a boomer. He was born, he's born 61, so he's the kind of the tail end of the boomer generation. But he's kind of more like a little cuspy. He's a little bit of Gen X and a little bit of boomer, but I kind of make fun of him. So he's a little bit like us in that respect, but when it comes to any of the technology, I go to him like, "Okay, boomer, Jesus." You know? I mean, it's a
So
little bit
funny.
give him his iPad or his phone, but any technology, I'm just not built like that. Well, neither was I, but I think that's part of being Gen X is we've been so resilient through it all, and granted, everybody's had to deal with it, but it's how they've done it. We've gone from, going from vinyl, like even just how we listen to music. They talk about this all the time. We went from vinyl to 8-track to cassettes to CDs to the, Walkmans to now everything's streaming. So,
Yeah.
um, so
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
pretty good,
We,
yeah, and we're pretty adaptable. So, you kind of have to go with the flow. We're just so resilient
uh,
in that respect. We're able to go with the flow, I guess, a little better than some of the other generations.
yeah. Yes. I agree. I agree. So there are people listening who are on a GLP-1, but doing zero strength training, just letting the pounds drop. What's your honest, no BS warning to them about what happens if they don't add resistance?
Well, if they were a metabolic mess before, they're going to be more of a metabolic mess if they don't take care of that. Because muscle is what fuels your metabolism. And if you are just losing weight, and like, gosh, there was this person in one of the groups, she was so upset because she had gained zero point 0.1 of a pound and the scale is going in the wrong direction. And I wanted to say, for the love of God, girl, are you serious? But I was much nicer about it. I'm like, "Girl, you could go to the bathroom and, go pee and lose zero point 0.1 of a pound," you know? Or
Exactly.
so
Mhm.
but, be more concerned with that muscle because maintaining muscle, and especially as we get older because we start losing it. If we don't
Yes.
use it, we don't keep building it, we lose it and we become frail, and, in bone loss, we gotta be good, making sure we're keeping our bones strong, and how do you do that? By weight training, resistance training. Picking up the weights and setting them down is what's going to do it. So it's double duty. It's keeping your metabolism at firing, and it's keeping your bones strong.
Mhm.
Because if you start losing, you just lose weight, and half of that is muscle. And if you don't change how you are doing things and have a good solid foundation, if you go off that medication, and you start gaining back. Well, you've already lost half of your muscle. Well, you're not going to be gaining back muscle. You're going to be gaining back fat. So now you have a higher body fat percentage than you did when you started. You've lost your muscle, so you've killed your metabolism. So that is so important. If that's the one thing I could pound into people's heads, and we have been so ingrained over the years, especially I think our generation too, but I heard it all the time when I was personal training and meeting with potential clients, when I was managing the front end of a gym and meeting with potential members, I want to start working out. I just want to tone. I don't want to build muscle, get bulky. It's like, girlfriend, you're not going to freaking get bulky unless you take steroids. You're not going to look like Arnold because Arnold also took steroids to look like Arnold. So and I just wanna scream, and I just wanna shake people, and it's like, you're not guess what? You need to pick up the heavy weights to tone. That is how you're going to tone, and, so it's so, so frustrating. You'd think after all these years, we that myth would have been busted. Man, it's hard to get that ingraining out of women's psyche.
Yeah.
So so that is, I think, one of the most important things. And, I'm gonna be 60 next month, but my brain stopped at 32. I mean, I still think I'm 32. I don't know why, what that age is, but because somebody asked me that one. God, I don't know. Sometimes I just think I'm still 32. And I don't do anything differently because I'm 60 other than I know I need more recovery than I did when I was 30. So like when I do like the heavy workouts, I can't go back in and kill myself in the gym those 4 or 5 days. I can get in the gym and do great workouts, but not everyone is going to be a PR every single day. I ca- it my I just can't do it like I used to. So that is important. And then I can't get away with just not eating the protein and still being able to gain the muscle. I can't do that at this age, so I have to be super intentional about all of that. So, and wasn't in my younger days, I wasn't very healthy. I used to smoke a pack or more a day. I used to drink like a fish for years, and fortunately, I quit smoking in 2009, and kind of the heavier drinking went along with that, literally hand in hand. Um, so I am proof that you can turn your life around because I feel better now still at almost 60 than I did in my early 40s before I quit smoking. I mean, I was feeling like crap every single day. I mean, hangovers for sure, 3 days a week or whatever it was. Didn't help, but, and even now, as I've hit that menopause a couple of years ago, I was like, all of a sudden, if I had a few drinks, it's like, why am I so hungover from having like 2 or 3 drinks? I used to have
Mhm.
3 times, 4 times that in a night, but it's
Yeah.
a lot of us can't metabolize alcohol as well in menopause and beyond because our estrogen levels drop. And I did a blog post actually about that, from girls gone wild to estrogen gone wild and the connection of the two of them. So I mean that's not a bad thing. I mean the other night though I had a couple of beers, 3 beers, but it's few and far between if I even have that much drink. If I do that once a month, it's a lot these days.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah, all of that. I just think that all of what you just said and just needs to be put on repeat for a little while till we really get that information into our heads and that diet culture that is so ingrained in us all these years,
Well, and
really.
and the whole skinny thing has been making a huge comeback because of, the GLP-1s and the Ozempic and the stars, and you look at Sharon Osbourne, Kelly Osbourne, and all of these women who are so skinny. I'm sorry. I mean skinny is like a bad word these days, but they are. They are they
Yeah.
are dangerously thin And to have that, I thought the heroin chic went out in the 90s, with like the
Mhm.
those models of that generation, but it's
Yeah.
back and it's
Yeah.
sad and it's scary because, um, and something I read and I was like, "Oh gosh, that makes so much sense about Mark's grandmother." She was one of his well, both of his grandmas were very healthy until their late 80s. Um, but, when they talk about, with falling and breaking a hip and,
Mhm.
and when we all can do that, so I don't want to be like the lady that I always say, I don't want to be the lady who's like fallen and I can't get up, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
but when you fall and you break a bone, because at first, they always talk about breaking a hip, and then the elderly will go downhill after that. And a lot of times they don't recover from it. And eventually, and not too long after that, they die.
Mhm.
And they just talked about even somewhere or some article I read where they talked about where like breaking a bone, it doesn't have to be a hip, but hips are the ones that we always talk about because that's usually what happens. They fall and break a hip. Well, Mark's grandmother, who had her wits about her, and she was funny as all get out. That woman, she reminded me so much of Betty White. She could have been like Betty
Aw.
White's cousin. And she fell and broke her arm, and she went downhill after that. And it's something that happens when you break a bone in your later, later years that I can't remember what the connection was with the brain, and she started getting dementia. Um,
Hmm.
and it's like, why? 'Cause it literally happened just like that from the time that she broke that bone. She went from living independently and, independent living, senior living, to
Yeah.
being more needing senior living and assistance, assisted living.
Right.
And in a memory care unit of that. So, it's like, I don't wanna do that. I wanna keep keep living large, and I wanna keep doing this. There's a gal I found, gosh, a couple of years ago as it's been a few years now since she started. She was probably mid her journey. Can't remember how old she was. She's now 80, and she's on Instagram as Train with Joan. In
Okay.
her 70s, she was, like, 80 pounds overweight, and she was your typical 70-year-old heavy-set grandma, and now she's 80 and she's buff as hell.
Hey, that's
I mean, her
great.
daughter, who is a personal trainer, said, "Mom, you need to start weight training," and now she's got hundreds of thousands of followers, if not 1,000,000 followers on social media, and she's out
Wow.
flexing with the best of them.
Ah, love that.
So,
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
I wanna be like her.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went from a metabolic mess to strongman competitor. For the person listening who is 55, scared, and hasn't moved in years, what is the one single action they can take tomorrow that feels doable but starts the avalanche of change?
It's just doing one thing. You don't have to do it all at once. So, what I always tell the people that I work with, that I've coached, and when I was personal training is, like if you're trying to change your whole diet, start with one thing. Maybe that one thing is getting half your body weight in ounces in a day, and you drink maybe this much water. Well, you don't have to go from this much water one day to a gallon the next. Add a little bit more. I start my day with one of these things. That's the very first thing I drink. I put a whole bunch of stuff in there. I call it my metabolic mocktail. Um, but that I start with 24 ounces of water, and I try to get 2 more of those a day. When I was driving the truck, that was difficult because it's not real easy to go to the bathroom.
Bet.
You can stop and you can't, if you have to go, they understand, but you want to be productive too, and and I lived off grid and in the bush for almost 8 years
Wow.
and all that. So I, I don't have to always be in a bathroom, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but there aren't always places to go that you won't be seen. So there's that. But anyway, um, So it's just, just doing one thing. So maybe it's just starting with getting that water and then getting your water intake up. Then the next thing is like, all right, maybe not every meal is going to have, be perfect, but start with one. Start meal prepping for one meal. And it's your lunch that you take if you go to work. Meal prep your lunch for the week. So you're not going off to a fast food joint and that food isn't food anymore. When we were kids, McDonald's did have actual beef in his burger. I don't think there's any beef left in that burger in any of those fast food joints anymore. So start there. Start with that one thing. And then, so you start with the water and then the next week or 2 weeks later, you're having your water and you're making your lunches. And then the week after that, well, maybe let's start adding walking into the thing. Maybe it's a block for the first couple of weeks and then you start going 2 blocks and 3 blocks. It's habit stacking. I think that was the book Atomic Habits
Mm-hmm.
where he talks about habit stacking. So you start one habit, get that in a habit, and then you start adding the next thing. So then that thing becomes a habit instead of trying to do 10 things all at once. Um, that's the best thing. And for weight training, there's so many women. I consider myself blessed because like I said, I met my husband when I was 19. I wasn't quite 20 yet. We just had our 40th anniversary of our first like meeting and when we first met and first date
Love
in
that.
February, and in next month we'll have our 37th anniversary. Um, and he worked out. So one of our first dates was actually going to the gym and working out. So, and he knew how to lift weights, so he taught me how to do it. But not a lot of women have that.
No.
And it's scary, and because you don't want to look like a fool. And so many women, like when I
Right.
was personal training, the studio I personal trained out of is literally right next door to Planet Fitness. And Planet Fitness, you walk in or any other gym or commercial gym and you just go, how do they all know how to do that? And I don't. And
Yeah.
even me, who was a personal trainer at the time, I was intimidated because I was such a metabolic mess. I didn't want to work out at Planet Fitness. So, one, it's finding a place, and two, maybe hire a personal trainer in the beginning.
Yes.
Spend the
Yes.
money. Yes, it's gonna cost you money, but what is it costing you sitting at home and having your health go to shit and you don't do anything about it? Yeah. So even me, like I said, a year and a half ago when I was needing to get back into the gym and I had no motivation to do it, they had a small group, um, thing that they did, which I think they were taking, like, up to 10 or 12 people that were in this small group, and it was twice a week at this time, and it was for 2 months, for 8 weeks, and so I told my
Right.
husband that, "I wanna join the group, and I know it's gonna cost some money, and I know what to do, but I need something to get in myself into a routine to get myself back in the gym," and he said, "Mary, I don't care what it costs, just go, 'cause I miss my workout partner," 'cause we used to
Oh.
get together all the time.
Mhm.
So, the first 4 weeks, I just went twice a week, and I, talked to my boss where I was working at the time. I said, "It's, Tuesdays and Thursdays, can I get off 20 minutes early so I can change and I can get there on time?" And he's like, "Absolutely, Mary. Go ahead, go ahead." Um, so and then after the first month, I had her write me a workout for a 3rd day, and then so on that 3rd day, I was actually going to the gym with my husband even though we were doing different workouts. And then after my 2 months, I no longer needed to be part of a group. Had my routine, and
Yeah.
I know what to do. I know how to lift the weight. So if I
Right.
need that,
Yep.
somebody who's never done it before, it
Right.
will be the best money you ever spent, and especially for us women. And finding too, maybe it's not in a big commercial gym, 'cause like Planet Fitness doesn't have personal trainers. But, maybe it's not one of those big places. Maybe it's a studio like I was training out of where it's not an open gym. The only people that come in there are the people that we train and for their specific time. So, um, or maybe it's taking a class like I did, or, join a yoga studio, meet with the instructors, interview the gym. That's a thing too. It's like interview your people that you're going to go to. You don't have to just sign up for one because you might not like, I hate the word vibe because it's so overused, but you might not like the vibe of that gym or that trainer or somebody. So interview a few different people and
Yeah.
find out where, or find a workout buddy that's going to go to classes with you because that
Yeah.
is what's going to get you there.
Yeah. Ah, fantastic. I love all that. The other thing too I would add to that is a lot of times at the gyms, if you've not worked out, like I too was like you, my ex-husband was like had been working out for his since he was like 12 or something. So he taught me. So I did have that benefit that a lot of women don't have. But the other thing I would say is when you do join a gym, if you go in and you're like, okay, I'm going to join a gym, they do offer to give you like, have a trainer walk around and show you, like, get you started. Take advantage of that. So many people don't take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd add that to all of what you just said. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. And we did that like with the gym that I was the manager at, we call it, or the front end manager, we call it like I can't remember what the heck we called it, but it would just amaze me how many people wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do, and then all they do is they come in, they go on the treadmill,
Mhm.
20 minutes, maybe a half an hour. They do that maybe 5 times, and then they have a year-long gym membership, and they've only come in 5 times. And then
Yeah.
they get mad at the gym. It's not the gym's fault.
No. No,
You
no.
gotta be the one who's actually doing it, you take some
Yeah.
and that's that whole thing of, the responsibility and, it's not anybody else's fault. One of the best quotes I ever learned from this whole training thing I was sent to because I became a manager for this county job and I didn't have a college degree, so they had to send me. I managed 2 people. It was so crazy. But those 2 days that I spent in that thing, in that training that I did, I picked up one thing, and it has stuck with me ever since, and so it was worth that like, you can always learn something somewhere along the way, and
Yeah.
the quote I heard, and it has stuck with me 20 years later is, "If it is to be, it is up to me. It's
If it
nobody
is to be
else's
so
fault, nobody else's responsibility. It is my responsibility to take and to do something." So, and if you have somebody that isn't helping you, like doctors and like I've had to fire doctors, and even though I can blame it on the doctor, if I don't feel it's right, I have to find a different doctor.
yeah.
It's up to me to find a different doctor, and that's what I've had to do. So I could blame the doctor who, put me on a different medication, but when it wasn't right, I have to speak up because they're not gods either. So if I don't speak up or I don't, and they're not going to listen to me, I'm sorry, you're not my doctor anymore. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so true. That is so true. I think, it's really comes down to accountability, doesn't it? We
Hmm.
have to be accountable for our own health and wellness.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. You have to be your own advocate too. And that's the one thing I've learned over the years too. Again, is if there's good and bad with the internet because you can get bad information on the internet, but you can also get good information on the internet. I don't also don't have my late 20s, early 30s, I was a medical mess. I had Graves' disease, my thyroid was killed, I had 2 back surgeries, like, all within 5 years. It was my husband was like, "Girl, what what are we gonna do with you?" Um, and over like, thyroid has been such a thing. Doctors don't know a lot about it,
Yeah.
and even I was sent to an endocrinologist. My
Mhm.
GP sent me to an endocrinologist because that was when the whole perimenopause thing started. And no matter what I was doing, I was eating clean. I was prepping my meals. I was eating my chicken and veggies and rice and prepping them 3, 4 times a day and not losing weight. And I had been before because of it. And this endocrinologist was just telling me, well, you're eating too many calories. And I'm like, well, how many calories is that? And I mean, He's like, "Well, how many calories is that if you're eating chicken 5 times a day?" I said, "About 15 to 1,600 calories." He said, "Well, you should go down to maybe 1,200 calories or less a day." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You want me to kill my metabolism?" And he's like, "Well, it's just it's too many calories, so you just gotta it's all about calories in, calories out." So I'm sitting there with this doctor, and I said to him I came right out and said, "So you mean to tell me if I have 1,200 calories of cheesecake in a day or 1,200 calories of chicken, fresh chicken, fresh veggies, and rice a day, it's the same?" And he's like, "It's calories in, calories out." He said, "Maybe I should send you to a nutritionist or a dietitian for advice." And I said, "Mr. Doctor, I thank you very much, but I think you need that nutritionist more than I do, and I am leaving." I walked out the door. I thought, if that's the advice he's giving me,
Yeah.
no, those calories are not the same. They
No.
metabolically, calorie-wise, yes, but metabolically, they're not the same. I'm sorry, dude. You're on my I'm not gonna come back and see you.
Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
So,
Good for you.
you have to be that way. If it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to make sense, walk out. Fire him,
Yeah.
find somebody different.
Yep. Yeah. That's wonderful. So, Mary, so you've shared so much incredible wisdom. My final question is the one I ask every guest. What does fun to be fit over 50 mean to you?
To me, it means, and it's gonna be fun to be fit over 60 now,
I do.
um, is that's with my website and all the things that I've done over the years since getting myself healthy in my mid 40s is not letting your age define you. I mean, just because you turn a certain age doesn't mean you have to stop wearing certain clothes. Do we need to wear Daisy Dukes? No, but I guess if you want to and you can rock them, rock the freaking things. Who cares? Life is meant to be lived, not to be just to be, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So get yourself fit because if you want to do things, you're not going to be able to do them. Health is our greatest wealth, and you can be as wealthy as Elon Musk, Bill Gates, or you can be a billionaire. But if you're sick in bed and can't move, what good is that? So
Yeah.
get your health on track so you can enjoy this. I mean, good Lord, we didn't survive inhaling obnoxious amounts of Aquanet and drinking from a garden hose to not be able to enjoy life. I mean, we've worked hard. Our generation has worked hard just like the generations before us. And we've worked for it. So now it's time to enjoy it. And you can't enjoy it. And trust me, I know I felt like crap for years. And the last couple of years when my whole metabolic mess was happening, it didn't feel good. And especially like now too. We don't have a lot of choices here in Fairbanks, Alaska for like clothing stores and things like that. I was just in Utah for a company event and being in Salt Lake and Provo, and it's like, wow, there's a Marshalls again, there's TJ Maxx, there's all these stores. What is this? We've got Walmart and Fred Meyer's here and Old Navy and a couple boutiques. That's about it. Um, but it's fun to be going into whatever store it is and trying something on and not like literally crying in the dressing room. I mean, I had those moments. And so that makes you wanna go out and live life more, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I love that so much. Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, thank you so, so much for doing this. Um, have, I don't know how long I've seen you on the internet, but I feel like just seeing you on the, like, I just feel like I know you. And you just have that aura about you. And I just love that. And I love your spiciness and your desire for improvement and more in life. And I just appreciate I think so many people are gonna benefit from this, whether they're on a GLP-1 or not. Like
Right, right.
like literally that you gave some sound information that is going to really improve a lot of people's lives if they take it to heart. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because whether you're on one or not, I mean, all the things that I do, you should be doing that, you know, you need to be doing that anyway. And that's,
Yeah.
I had a post about that, I think last week or the week before. It's like, yeah, I took the GLP-1, but I needed to, or it helped me finally get out of that metabolic nightmare I was in that I have been trying so hard to get out of. Um, but it it's a tool, and I think I just posted this again somewhere. It's a tool in the toolbox. It's not the toolbox. It's a
Right.
tool. So you've
Right.
gotta get in the gym. It that didn't drag me to the gym. I was already dragging my ass to the gym, not, feeling horrible. It didn't it doesn't make my food for me. I was doing that to begin with and continue to do. It doesn't drink my water for me every single day, because if I don't drink my water, that's the one thing too on this too, is it I my digestion feels it. I have to drink that water every single day if I'm not intentional about it. And again, these are things we should do anyway.
Right.
So keeping yourself hydrated is super, super important, especially here. We're super dry here. It's cold and it's dry. Um, it's hopefully going to start warming up here a little bit more. Woke up to a little dusting of snow on our vehicles this morning.
Yeah.
Um, but it's super important, and you're in a dry area too. You've got to hydrate yourself.
Yeah.
Um, that's even one thing that'll just maybe make somebody feel better if they're not, drinking something to hydrate them, other than caffeine, which dehydrates you. You gotta have something to counteract that. Even that can make them feel like 100 times better than they're currently feeling.
So true. How can people find you?
Well, you can find me on the socials, of course. I'm most active on Facebook. So I'm just Mary Black. Sometimes I'm hard to find, but if you do facebook.com/ISA, Mary Black is Mary Black. um, because there is a Mary Black who is gosh, what is she? She's a folk singer, out there,
Yeah.
so she'll pop up, and that's a very, very common name. Or you can find me under Mary with my maiden name, which is Hjelle Black, Mary Jelly Black. We said it Jelly. And you can find me on Instagram, which I'm somewhat, um, I'm on Instagram, but Facebook is definitely the primary social media that I use. But I'm at She's Totally Awesome, and it's she's.totally.awesome. So, and then my website is she'stotallyawesome.com.
Wonderful. And I'll add that to this description for people to find you. Thank you so much. So happy about this.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Carol. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we were able
Yeah.
to connect.
Me too. Before we go, I want to share something important. This podcast is all about sharing real life experiences, insights, and inspiration, but it's not a substitute for professional medical advice. I'm your cheerleader and fellow traveler on this journey, not your doctor. Everyone's body is different. What works for me or my guest might not be right for you. So please always check with your healthcare provider before starting any new fitness routine, changing up your eating habits, or trying something new. You know your body best, and partnering with a good doctor is part of taking care of that beautiful body of yours. This show is for educational and informational purposes only. By listening, you agree that you're ultimately responsible for your own health decisions. Now go out there and have some fun being fit.